Hi, everyone. My name is Jennifer Van Alstyne. I'm just going to give everyone a couple of moments to join us. I know people are joining us from all over. When you come in, do introduce yourself in the comments. All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Jennifer Van Alstyne. Thanks so much for coming to this YouTube live session. This is actually my first time doing it where it's just me. Usually I have a guest on, but last month, many of you asked me, would you please do a YouTube live about personal academic websites? So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about some of the benefits of websites. We're going to talk about how to get started. And we're also going to talk about some of the pitfalls, some of the things that you want to avoid if you're starting on this project. So if that sounds good to you, let me know in the chat. Hi, Larry. Thanks for joining us again today. Hi, Louisa. I'm so glad that you've joined us. When you come in, definitely let me know in the chat. Do you have a website now? Do you already have a website, or are you looking to create one? Is that something that you're considering now? Let me know in the chat. So today I want to talk about personal website benefits. We're going to talk about how to get started, and we're going to talk about some mistakes that people tend to make along the way. So first, let's talk about personal website benefits. There are so many benefits to having a personal website. Hi, Hannah. Thanks for coming. I'm so glad that you joined us. So we're talking about personal website benefits, and as Hannah knows, there are so many benefits to having a personal website, whether you're a graduate student, whether you're a professor, whether you're leaving academia altogether and are looking at different jobs and different potential careers. Having a personal website is a great way to communicate more about who you are and how people can connect with you. It's really dynamic and it's adaptable. So a personal website is a great way to manage your online presence long term. Louisa says, I have a template made as a static website, but it's not public yet. Still lots to add to it. Great. I'm so glad you joined us. I think that there are going to be some things during this kind of conversation that will help you as you get ready to launch. Larry says, you're looking to have a personal website. Great. This is going to be perfect for you. So today I want to talk about my top 3 benefits of personal websites. There are a ton of them. I have a whole blog post that goes through a lot of different benefits. But the 3 benefits that I want to talk about today are that a personal website helps people find you. What does that mean? Well, we do a lot of things where we have kind of touch points with other people, whether we have a publication or we're attending a conference, or there's just someone in our field who we know that we want to connect with. There are lots of opportunities to connect with them, whether it's on social media, whether it's online, whether it's in person after coronavirus ends. Having a personal website helps people who you might otherwise have to see in person essentially be able to find you when it makes sense for them. I think that when we think of networking, it's kind of a traditional, in the traditional sense, where we're meeting people in person and we're introducing ourselves and maybe having a short conversation. But especially right now, that's just not really possible in the traditional sense. And in general, there are all times of day, all places around the world where people might want to have a little bit more information about us. So when you want to have a little bit more information about someone, say you're presenting on a panel with them, or you're considering taking their course in grad school, well, Googling them is a good first option for most people, or some other type of search engine. When people Google you, you don't always have a lot of control over what people see. If you haven't been actively managing your online presence with things like websites or profiles or even faculty profiles, you don't necessarily know what people are going to find when they Google you. When you have a personal website, that is like, exactly what people are looking for. So that kind of result is going to show up really high in those search engine results. It means that when someone Googles you, they're going to be able to find you, and they're going to be able to find the information that you want them to see because you have control over it. It's something that adapts with you over time and that you have control over, that you own. You can change your bio, you can change your headshot, you can change the pages that you want to share. You can hide pages that are no longer relevant to you. So it helps people find you, but also helps them find the information that you want them to see, not some random Google search results that might not help them find the information that they're looking for. You see, there's a lot of different people who might be interested in us, whether it's a colleague or a student, maybe it's just a friend or family member, or someone who read an article that you wrote and is curious to read more from you. There are so many reasons why people might want to have just a little bit more information, and why a 2 or 3 minute Google search isn't necessarily going to find the information they're looking for in the way that makes sense for them. You see, when people find you, they also want to be able to get in touch. And if what happens is, like, if you do a Google search and you find a bunch of different articles by someone, but there's no way to read all of them or see it at a glance, or be able to find their social media or their email address, it might prevent people from taking that next step in connecting with you. It might prevent them from reading more of your work or learning more about you, like reading your bio. It might prevent a student from knowing how to get in touch when it's not easily findable in a faculty profile. I mean, those get outdated a lot, and are not updated for some time in many, many universities. So a faculty profile that you don't have control over, it's not really the same as having a website, which is something that you own, something that you can control and that adapts with you over time. So personal websites are great because it helps people find you. It helps them find the information that you most want them to see, and it helps them get in touch or connect in the way that makes sense for them. I think that personal websites are really the best thing that we can do for our online presences, but they're big projects. They really are. There's a lot of steps to getting it right, to keeping it updated, to making sure that the content is also something that adapts over time. And because of that, websites aren't right for everyone. There's 3 reasons why academics tend to kind of abandon these projects or they go unupdated. That's something that happens really often. So the first reason that many academic websites kind of fail to get off the ground and actually, receive those benefits of people being able to find you and learning more about you is a lack of time. Websites take time to build. They take time to manage. There are updates that you have to do, technical updates like updating software or updating programs, depending on what you use. There are also content updates that you have to do as things change for you over time. Your bio will probably need to be updated every couple of years. You may have pages or research or teaching that needs updating on an even more regular basis. So there's a lot of time that goes into making a website. And that's one of the things that people tend to underestimate. There's a ton of articles out there that are like, here's how to get your academic website done in 1 hour. And it's true, you can totally build a website page in an hour, but it's not going to be the best at communicating who you are. It's not going to be the best at communicating all of these different touch points of how people are going to connect with you, how people are going to reach out with you. This type of project does take more steps. So let's talk a little bit more about that in a second. Before we get into that, I want to talk about the skills that it takes to make a website, because not everyone has the skill set that's required to do it on their own. And I think that a lot of people who are coming and looking at my resources they're ready. They're like, I am going to create a website on Wix.com and it's going to be up, and it's going to be up tomorrow. And you know what? That's something that you can do, but I encourage you to take a little bit more time and really think about, what do you want to share? What do you think that people want to see from you? What might they be interested in exploring? So there is skills that are going to help you along the way. The first of those is knowing where your skill level at in terms of technicality when it comes to building a website. For some people, I think that there's who are kind of like scared of tech or not familiar with it before, there's an inclination to go directly to a drag and drop website editor, something like Wix.com or Weebly. These websites can look really pretty, but they're not very effective when it comes to search engine optimization. It's not particularly adaptable. And oftentimes people find that they run into even more time updating things than they thought would be required, because those drag and drop editors do change over time. It also means that the elements within your website will change, sometimes without you intending them to. So you do have to keep in touch on technical updates, even though it's a drag and drop editor. And because of that, it's actually not something I recommend for most people, no matter what kind of technical training you have. If you've never built a website before, if you've built a couple on maybe drag and drop editors, or if you have a kind of template website like Luisa mentioned that she does, then WordPress or managed WordPress is the host that I recommend for most people. No matter where you are on that technical field when it comes to making websites, having a managed WordPress host is what makes sense for most grad students and what makes sense for most professors and researchers. You don't really have the time to do technical updates and to keep up to date with all of the things that change over time with a self-hosted WordPress or with something that you don't have to pay for. And because of that, I recommend a managed WordPress host because it takes care of technical updates for you. It will take care of security for you. It lets you know if there's like any breaches or anything like that. It'll email you. There's also really good customer service. Unless you have time to drop things and like fix a major error in your website, I don't recommend a self-hosted WordPress. And I don't recommend drag and drop editors because they are poorly updated. They're not well structured. They're not good for accessibility. I mean, there's a ton of reasons why they're not good. And I have a really good conversation with Brittany Tren about website hosts you might want to check out. Larry says time is a thing. Now we have to manage all our profiles and a website. Oh my gosh, yes, that is so true. I think that, let's see, when you have an online presence that's mostly made of different static profiles like OrcID, like LinkedIn, like Google Scholar, a personal website can feel overwhelming. It might actually not be necessary depending on how much information you want to share. If you have a ton of information you want to share, you want that to be something permanent, you want something to grow with you over time, then a personal website is what I recommend. If not, then just focus on updating your LinkedIn profile. Having an updated LinkedIn profile, super beneficial. So let's see, we talked about time. We talked about some of the skills when it comes to technical skills. There's also skills when it comes to writing. I think that, your academic bio is not going to cut it for a personal website. There's going to be a broad audience that's going to be visiting this site. That means that people are interested in seeing writing that's approachable. And academic bios tend to be overly detailed, long-winded, really long sentences, not very approachable. They tend to have jargon or terminology that's for a specialized audience. And because of that, your academic bio, what you are probably using now for publications or conferences, it's not going to be approachable for your website. You're going to want to write something that uses short sentences, that's written for a general audience, and that's easy to read. All right, let's see. Next, I want to talk about funds because websites do cost money. I wish they were free, but they're not. Websites cost money because you have to pay for hosting and you have to pay for the domain name. Now, there's kind of a really big range of what you pay. I know a lot of people who are on the lower end of the budget, like Google Sites. Google Sites is a really good option if you don't have a big budget to spend. But for most people, I recommend some form of managed WordPress host. And that's going to go anywhere from $11 to $20 a month. You might be able to find something cheaper, but I recommend having things like security taken care of for you. I recommend having things like updates, technical updates taken care of for you. Most people don't remember. I mean, I do this for a living and I don't remember. So I can't really imagine researchers or professors, grad students who are so busy and with a lot of different spinning wheels at once that this is not something that you want to have be an issue. So if you can't afford a website, I recommend focusing on your LinkedIn profile. Honestly, it has so many benefits. It's really meets almost all of the benefits of a personal website. It's just not quite as dynamic. You don't have quite as much control over it. So when it comes to funds, anywhere from $50 a year to up to $400 a year is what makes sense for a personal website. All right, let's see. Next, I want to talk about the steps to making a website. I think that's what many of you are here for. And so we're going to talk about that next. Let's see. If you have any questions, be sure to let me know in the chat. Also, let me know where you're at in this process. Do you have a website? Are you somewhere in the process of launching your website, or have you never had a website and you're ready to get started? Let me know in the chat. So let's see, steps to making a website. So the first step to making a website is honestly the most tedious one. And it's not particularly fun, but it's the most necessary. The first step to making a website is gathering content. By that, I mean, you want to gather the things that you know are going to be on your website, that you know you want to share. So that's things like your headshot, a bio that is written for a general audience. You're going to want to update your CV, and you're going to want to decide things like which social media platforms you want to share or which places you want to link to that make the most sense. For instance, if you have a faculty profile, that's something that you might want to link to. The gathering content step is one in which you go through all of the pieces of content, all of the pieces of written content, visual content, and any design elements or videos that you want on your website. And you actually get all of that, put it in one place, make sure it's all easily accessible and edited in a form that you'd like to see on the web. I know that a lot of people like to start with choosing a host, but honestly, you can't really pick a host. You can't pick the best host for you until you know how much you want to share. For instance, a lot of people like personal websites on Squarespace, but Squarespace isn't really recommended unless you're doing e-commerce, unless you're selling something. And it's really clunky if you're considering blogging. So if you start your website on Squarespace, but you know you want to blog, well, that's a mistake. And that's something that you're going to want to correct before you place all your content. So that's why the first step to making your website is gathering that content. You need to see what you need to write, what you need to, gather, what needs updating, and that is your first step. Any questions about the first step, gathering content? Let me know in the chat. All right. Once you've gathered all of your content, before you pick a host, actually, I recommend choosing a domain name and site title. Now, it's unlikely that if you go with your name that, that domain name is already taken, especially if you use something like a middle initial or another keyword in that headline. So I use jennifervanalstein.com for my personal website. That's something that's easily Googled and it shows up. It's really easy for people to remember when they're typing it in because it's just my name. So my top recommendation for PhD students, for grad students, for researchers, scientists, and professors is to use your name. Now, if you are Googling yourself online and you see not only is there someone else with my name, there's someone else with my name in my field, well, that's something that you actually do want to take note of now. You might consider using, for instance, your middle initial in all publications in the future, using your middle initial in your in your website domain name as well. For instance, I might use Jennifer S. Finalstein instead of Jennifer Finalstein if there were another person with my name. Since there isn't another person with my name that is kind of like in the similar field at all, it's not something that I need to worry about. But I hosted a webinar or a workshop last week. There was someone in that workshop who had this particular issue. So do note that if you do share the name with someone else in your field, you may consider changing how you use your name publicly in the future. All right. So pick your domain name first before you choose a host, because honestly, as soon as you choose a host, this is the first thing they're going to ask you. It's like as soon as you sign up for any plan or start like creating your website, the first thing you ask you is to pick a domain name. So that's why that step comes first. Your next step is to choose a website host. This is the stuff that I think a lot of people tend to get wrong. They pick something that they think is going to look good over something that's going to function well. That's one of the reasons why I recommend WordPress. WordPress.com is very easy for people to use. It's a managed WordPress host. It's what I use and what I recommend to most of my clients. Now, any kind of managed WordPress host where they take care of things like those technical updates and security for you is a great option. So I do recommend managed WordPress hosts. I just like WordPress.com because I've had good experiences with them and their customer service. When you choose a host, I do not recommend, again, no drag and drop editors, no kind of flash sites or anything that has a lot of moving parts. Those websites are not going to be very effective for academic audiences and also are less approachable for the general public. They're less accessible in general. So don't do anything that is like super, super flashy or like has lots of videos on it. Yes, and I also don't recommend Squarespace unless, again, if you're going to be selling something on your website, like a product, that might be something to consider, but I don't recommend Squarespace as well. Let me know if you have questions about website hosts. I know that this is a big step for a lot of people. It's also the one that most affects your budget. But again, unless you have time to drop and fix issues that arise, I don't recommend going the free route of WordPress self-hosting. I recommend you have a LinkedIn profile that is dynamic and filled out and updated instead. So after you choose a host, next step is to place your content. And actually, this goes pretty fast. Most people really like it because even though that first step, that gathering content, the writing, and then, like updating everything, that takes a long time. Placing your content, once you learn basic things like how to place text, how to make a headline, placing your content is something that goes really fast. That is the portion that can go in an hour. For most people, if this is your first time making a website, this might take a couple of hours, depending on how much content you have. It could take up to a day. But for the most part, placing your content goes very quickly once you have it written out. Larry says, I want to share a lot of what you do. Teaching, research, extension activities, mentoring, SciComm, and a blog. Okay, I definitely recommend a managed WordPress for you. If you want that many things, you want it also to be easy to navigate. That means you want a clear menu, you want everything to really be accessible and easy for people to find what they're looking for. So a managed WordPress, especially if you want that blog, is going to work well for you. So once you have the content that you want, and if you're planning a really big site like Larry's, you might do this in stages. You might say, oh, I have my first like 2 pages of content done. That's like, my bio and my contact information. I also a page about my research. I want to put that up. You can totally go and do that. Make sure that you have your bio page. That should be your front page. Make sure that you have that before you launch your site. So that's the next step. Placing your content, making sure that everything looks the way you want is actually what comes next. So after you place your content, after you have the pages you want, there's another step before launching, and that's to test and preview your website. A lot of people miss this step, or they launch their site and announce it and try to make the testing of their site part of the announcement. I actually recommend that you do some testing and previewing before you launch your website. By that, I mean that many website builders have some kind of preview option where you can visit your website before it's actually live. And you can see it like it would be live, but it's a preview. So you want to preview your website in both desktop and mobile screens, because you want something that's going to be accessible on both. After all, people use Google and will look you up on both. So you want to make sure that your website looks good in both desktop, mobile screens. If you have a tablet preview, go ahead and do that as well. So that's something that you can do on your own. And that step usually takes maybe 5 minutes per page, not even. And you do want to see like, the one tip that I have during this step is to check and see on the mobile view, check and see how long your paragraphs look. If your paragraphs look like they're too long, like they're taking up too much of the screen, you want to break those up and make them smaller. I think that's the one thing that the one change that you can make for your text on a website. It's something that academics aren't necessarily inclined to do, but short paragraphs, like 2-3 sentences tops, can really make a difference, especially on those mobile screens. So previewing your website in desktop, mobile screens, tablet if you can, is a great practice. After you do that, it can be really helpful to launch your site but not announce it yet. Just like share it with a couple of friends and family members, people who you trust, who will actually spend a few minutes looking at your site and giving you honest feedback. You are not looking for people who are going to be like, oh, your website is so beautiful, I love everything about it. I want you to ask your friends and family members who will give you some honest feedback, let you know what's confusing, let you know if there's anything that they're having questions about or that they want to see more of. These are the things that we are looking for when testing a personal website. You want to know if they were able to find things like your name, your contact information, your social media links. You want to ask them if there were things about your research or your teaching that were unclear or confusing. This is too much to ask of a general social media audience. These are too specific questions to ask on Twitter and just being like, hey, let me know if you have any advice. People's advice is going to be helpful, but I think it's more helpful after you've already done this feedback session with a friend, with a family member, or with someone else, like a colleague or someone in your program. I think that's going to be super helpful for you. And the questions that you want to ask them are like, is there anything confusing? Did you find, it was difficult to find something? Were you lost at any point? Is there more information that I should include, in this section? Were you confused about my research, or do you want to see more about my teaching? These are the questions that you want to ask when you are testing your website. The next step is to do, well, a launch. And by that, I mean, take your site live officially if you haven't already. Let people know you want to share your website. Do that kind of initial social media. Hey, I have a new personal website, put it in your bio, put it in your email signature. These are all kind of portions of launching your website. But the thing that most people miss, and the last step to making your personal academic website, is sharing your website, actively continuing to share your website, not just in that initial post. A lot of people will create a website, it looks awesome, and they put so much work and time into it, and then they are like, hey, I have a website, and a lot of people will maybe like or comment on it, and then that's it. You never kind of see or hear about their website again. But a website it's kind of like a living thing. It's something that can adapt with you over time. It's something that if you have a conference presentation, you can add it and share the link to your speaking engagements. I want you to think about sharing your website as a step of creating your website, but also a step of continuing it. Sharing your website is something that kind of comes naturally if you have something that's relevant to say. If you're talking about your teaching and you think people might want to learn more about that course, well, share that page. If you're letting people know about a publication and you have a link to that and maybe an abstract on your personal website, well, that's a great way to share it too. So Continue sharing your website after you've created it. You can share it on social media. Again, I recommend including your personal website in your email signature. Put it on your LinkedIn page, not just in your about section, but as a media entry. That way people can click on the link and actually see a preview of your website. Sharing your website is an ongoing process, and it's one that is really necessary in order to get the benefits for personal academic websites. And sharing them on social media can be helpful, but also just like letting your friends and family know that you have a website. That's a great idea. All right, so who has questions about the steps of making a website? Let me run through those steps again for you. So step one is gather your content. Gather all your writing, your bio, your headshot. Think about what research or teaching you want to share and, put that all in one place. If you have to update your CV, it's a great time to do it. So first step, gather your content. Second step, pick a domain name and site title. I do recommend using your full name whenever you can. Third step is choose a website host. My top recommendation is WordPress.com or another managed WordPress host. Next step is placing your content. And again, remember, the step goes a lot faster. This is the step that you can probably get done in an hour or two, depending on the size of your website. After you place your content, you're going to want to test your website and preview it. You're going to want to preview the views like on mobile, tablet, and desktop. And you're going to want to test your website by asking your friends and family some serious questions about what they found, about what they were confused about what they want to see more of. Then you're ready to launch your website. That's the fun stuff where you get to share it with all your friends. You get to share it on social media and update things like your email signature and your social media bio sections with that link. After that, you're going to want to continue sharing your website. You're going to want to find other ways to include it in social media posts. You're going to want to include it as a media entry on your LinkedIn page. And you're going to want to direct it, people to it if you're at a conference or at a meeting where they might want to learn more about you after the fact. Let people know, hey, I have a website. You can just Google me and it'll show up. And that can make a huge difference for creating those long-term connections. Personal websites have so many benefits. They help people find you. It helps people read your work, helps people share it. It also helps people get in touch and create those kind of longer term connections in the way that they want. It helps people connect in the way that makes most sense for them. Maybe it's connecting with you on social media. Maybe it's shooting you an email. Maybe it's just reading more of your work or, being able to experience more of your research. There are so many ways that people can connect with us. Personal academic websites, honestly, they're the best way to facilitate that connection. But again, we've just talked about all those steps. We talked about some of the pitfalls along the way, like lack of time, lack of skills, or maybe even lack of funds. These can trip people up. So personal academic websites, they're a lot of work, but they have so many benefits. And, I hope that you learned a few things today that will help you get started in the process. Now, I am going to stay on for a few more minutes. Please ask me your questions. I'll answer anything and talk with you about anything when it comes to personal websites. So do let me know if you have anything you'd like to share. If you want me to take a quick look at a website, let me know. Just hanging out, waiting for questions. Let me know your questions in the chat. I got started making personal websites. Gosh, it's been a few years. My first website I created was for my school's literary magazine. I was editor-in-chief. I had a lot of fun making that, but I made it on one of those drag and drop editors, and a couple of years later, no one was paying for the domain name, and then people lost the password, and it was just totally gone. Like there's no more website for it. And one of the things I like most about WordPress.com is like, even if all of a sudden you can't afford, your plan with your private domain name, you do still always get to keep the, your subdomain at WordPress.com. So it's great to not lose your content. I've seen too many websites just, get shut down and then lose everything at the end, and it makes me sad. But when I created my personal website, I was in grad school, and I'm a poet. I had to send out a lot of poetry submissions trying to get more publications. And I saw, every submission that they had there was a space like author's website. I just realized at some point, maybe that was going to help me get more publications. Maybe if I have that online presence, it'll help my acceptance rate. And it did. I was able to definitely get more publications once I was on social media, once I had that kind of online presence. So I got started because I thought it would help my poetry. Found it was beneficial for way more things than that, like help me network, help me meet so many cool people, and help people learn more about me. So I really love having a personal website. Luisa says, thanks a lot for the tips. Looking forward to start writing the content, even though there won't be much for now as a student. I think that that is so great. Actually, starting your website when you're a student is the perfect time. My website's changed so much over time. When I first had it, it was just like one page. I think I had my social media links on there. I had a headshot, but I didn't have a lot of content. It wasn't until I started teaching that I was like, oh, I had a teaching page. I actually created a teaching portfolio as part of an assignment in my class. And I was like, I'm going to put this online. I think it'll be more dynamic if people can see it, if people can click on things and be able to, check out exactly what they want, as opposed to this like really thick binder of like all of these reports and whatever. I created this online portfolio and I was like, this is awesome. I think that this is a really great way to highlight teaching, to highlight all the different elements that go into it. So it's not just for, job seekers. It's not just for, highlighting your teaching for potential employers. It's also beneficial for students who get to learn a little bit more about you on that page. So there are all sorts of ways we can adopt our websites as things change for us over time. And that's really one of the beauties of having a personal website, not just like a faculty profile or, grad student bio. This is something that's yours. It's something that you really control what people see. That's the thing I like most about it. Let me know if you have any more questions about personal websites, if you have any questions on how to get started, any content questions or technical questions. I'm happy to answer them. All right. Well, that's it for this YouTube Live. I guess we've been on, I've been talking for 37 minutes. That's longer than I thought I'd talk, but I'm so glad that you all stuck with me. And do let me know if I can help you anyway in the future. I will link to my website guides and like content inspiration after this video ends. So in the description, you'll see some links below that will help you kind of dive further into this project. Thanks so much for joining me.